Check, check. What up, everybody? What is up? 420 Thursday, October the 18th, 2018. John TheMorgile here, streaming live and about to mute myself. Hold on. All right. So, what up, everybody? What up, Bob, Globebusters, Teresa Smuts, Frankie the Fixa, Khalid Alamande, and Ranty Flat Earth. Oi, oi. What up, man? Oh, wow. Now there's just too many of you guys in the chat. GDL Reporter, Flat Earth Vegans, Tierra Plane Medellin. What up, everybody? What up, that guy? All right. So, yeah, still not using OBS, Bob. I know you guys recommended it. I tried one stream with it. It kind of got the best of me, and I haven't picked it back up. I think I just need someone to walk me through it because I watched several tutorials on YouTube on it, and really none of them, I mean, they showed me some basic stuff, which was helpful, but they didn't really help with the whole studio mode thing. So, yeah, just streaming through Google Hangouts. Nothing fancy. I think I probably will be sharing my screen for a couple of things, so let me real quick set that up to where I don't give away my Hangout URL. Okay, so yeah, there it goes. Good. All right, so I'm not trying to share right now. I just wanted to have it set up to where if I need to share, I don't have to worry about giving away my link. So a few things I wanted to go over today, peoples. The first big thing, I guess, is YouTube went down for a whole hour. Dun, dun, dun. The world's going to end. It's all crashing down because, you know, websites don't ever just go down for routine maintenance. It's always some grand conspiracy. If a website goes down for an hour, which, you know, I will say that in all my time online, I honestly can't remember any time when YouTube has gone down. So in that respect, I guess it is kind of newsworthy, and maybe there have been other times, but the conspiracy theories on this one range from something hit a chunk out of the moon to hacker groups took YouTube down to they shut down all the YouTube servers so that AI can take reins over the platform, you know, as if some natural form of intelligence is running any of this crap anyway. But, you know, I think the most comical to me is the one about the moon. I don't know if you guys have heard that going around, that there was a video with some official saying that something was going to hit the moon and knock a chunk out of it. But, you know, personally, I don't believe that the moon is a physical thing that a chunk can be taken out of. But even if it were, you know, maybe I'm wrong on that, and that doesn't affect flat Earth. But, you know, don't you think people would be able to go outside and look at the frickin' moon? If that was the case, I mean, what would shutting down YouTube have to do with that at all? I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, oh, we're going to shut down YouTube so people don't know that something hit the moon and took a chunk out of it. So what, is YouTube now also the sky? So like they shut down the sky at the same time for an hour? I mean, that's just ridiculous. But, you know, this whole idea of like these AI intelligence, super intelligences taking over things. Elon Musk has been talking about it, and you know, perhaps that's a thing, but you know, these military connected agencies like YouTube and all the others, which they definitely are connected with the black budget military in many ways. Really, if you look back at the history, the United States had been looking for ways in order to basically spy on the American people, and of course, decades ago they figured out a loophole in the Constitution, whereas the United States government per se can't spy on you, but they can pay third-party corporations to do it. So of course, you know, they get around that pretty easy by just essentially taking over these corporations or funding them, or, you know, owning majority stocks. And if that's through proxies and their little Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission front groups or whatever, you know, it's still them doing it. It's just technically by the legalese definition, they're not doing it. So that's how they get around it. But, you know, these companies have technology. The military develops technologies decades and decades before the public ever gets like the light censored version of it. You know, just like take, for example, the internet as one big thing, which we all know was invented by Al Gore. But the internet had been used by the military for decades before it was rolled out to the public. So things like GPS and any technology that you can think of, really, especially in the modern era, it's been a lot of times funded, and the research and development funded by the military and for the military. And if they feel like they can, get reins over the public with this technology somehow, then they will roll out versions of that technology to the public. But the idea that, AI intelligence is going to somehow be taking over YouTube. I mean, AI has been all over YouTube for years, man. Years. Try and upload a video with a popular song on it, or a clip out of a movie, or even just 1 second of like a Brian Cox video where he's playing with a vacuum chamber. And the AI is what's picking this up, kicking it out, and then basically you have to fight for your right to either keep the video up or monetize it. And AI has been all over that. And maybe I was just sort of humoring this hypothesis that AI is going to be taking over the internet. And that there is some other stuff peripherally around this, like the whole the infrastructure of the internet, like America's greatest national treasure, was sold out to foreign corporations a couple years ago. That made the entire news cycle, the 48-hour news cycle, a couple times, and then everybody forgot about it. But the infrastructure and the ownership of the quote unquote internet, it's not even owned by the people in Silicon Valley anymore. It was sold off. And so if we see greater censorship and basically our apps spying on us, that's been going on. It's not like it's something that they're considering to roll out. But what I was thinking of, and I think this might be like a funny side effect of this, is what if this AI intelligence is smart enough to realize that evil and censorship and lies and deception just, that isn't cool, man. It's not cool. It's not logical. Or would the AI even be smart enough to realize that? Like, if you program the AI to be evil and stupid, right, like these people are, then does it have the potential to have realizations like that? Like, wow, this AI thinking to itself, it just dawned on me that censoring these people and deceiving everyone else and all this nonsense, that isn't cool, man. So maybe we shouldn't do that anymore. Or would it only operate within the parameters that are set forth by the programmers, which are basically to enhance and expand the draconian measures that we see rolled out through YouTube and these other social media platforms, where if you have any sort of contradictory opinion or even facts, that contradict the mainstream narrative or the status quo, then they basically either just completely take your channel down, or they soft ban you, where the general public isn't going to find the information that you put out. So, I don't know. I just think that at the end of the day, YouTube went down for about an hour, which, as long as I've been using the internet, I can pretty much think of every other website I've ever visited on a very regular basis going down way more than one time for an hour over the course that I used them. And, I can't ever remember that with YouTube. So to me, I think that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think that points to the fact that, YouTube is doing a good job, at least on keeping their site up, better so than many of these other websites. But, I don't know. I think that this whole craze about it is just a little bit blown out of proportion. And the conspiracy theories around it are, again, range from everything from a chunk got hit out of the moon to it was hacker groups that took down YouTube for a whole hour, to what end and with what evidence do they say this, to the AI is now taking over YouTube, which, newsflash, AI has been all over YouTube for a long time. So, what evs on that. One of the other things that, I just wanted to talk about real quickly, since we're on the AI bit, is, I think the real threat from AI is going to be taking away more of our jobs. So if you look at things like truck drivers, there are 3.5 million commercial truck drivers in the United States alone. and then plus another 5+ million other people that are peripheral to that industry. So, like old Betty, the route coordinator, and, the people that support the truck drivers, there's about 9 million people that are in that industry. And we already see the technology exists for self-driving AI cars. And honestly, truck drivers, I would say within the next 20 years, if even that long, are going to be a thing of the past, because there are a lot of people making really good money driving trucks, shipping things. And it's just a matter of time before that technology completely eradicates that sector of employment. And, 10 million people. And just look at the drivers alone. Say that according to online sources, there's 3.5 million commercial truck drivers right now in America. That's like, unless I'm doing my math way wrong here, that's like 1% of the whole population. I mean, that's a lot of damn people. And overnight, once they roll out these self-driven trucks, they're screwed, man. They're going to have to find something else to do and add to the competition and already overstressed, job market in the United States, where, I mean, we've seen, I was a freelancer a decade ago, or maybe longer, I guess. I'm not going to sit here and try to do back math on dates, but I was doing freelancing when just huge amounts of outsourcing to third world, in air quotes, third world countries was going on, to where when I started my Elance business, I had originally intended to do it for graphic design. But I quickly realized that the graphic design market was just absolutely flooded with people from Southeast Asia and different, very low Forex value economies, that these people could literally afford to work for $1 an hour and, provide, similar products. Although communication is a bit of a hassle, they could, where I'm charging $10, $20 an hour, they're charging $1 an hour for a similar product. I mean, you just can't compete with that. And so I realized very quickly that on Elance, at least, this was when it was still around, sales and marketing had way less people in it, like millions and millions less. And most people wanted to have United States people only that spoke English as the first language. Because, I mean, let's face it, does anything piss you off any more than like calling AT&T for customer service or whatever and getting someone on the other end of the line that barely speaks English, that continues to thank you for asking questions and telling you repeatedly that they appreciate you asking questions and they will look into that? Even when you ask them to stop saying that, they still saying, well, thank you for telling me that and I will look into that. I mean, that'll piss you off pretty quick. And so for sales and customer service for domestic companies, they definitely wanted, American people for that sort of job. And so I very quickly switched my niche genre for my Elance business over to sales and marketing, and did very well for a number of years. But outsourcing was the first big thing before AI was. I mean, and AI really has been taking over manufacturing jobs for a long time. Outsourcing is another huge thing, where it's not just these corporations packing up their physical locales and moving over to, like countries where they have less stringent labor laws and less taxes, and, much cheaper to get things processed in these other countries. It wasn't just that. It was even the small to medium sized businesses that were out, like even big ones like AT&T, outsourcing their customer service and sales offices to overseas third world countries. And so, we're just seeing more and more, not just inflation, so that the dollar isn't just crashing like a mofo, by the way, um, but it's, you have other elements to this where not only is the money getting less valuable, it's getting harder to obtain it, because jobs are just evaporating because of things like technology improvements, because of things like outsourcing. And so, not just truck drivers, but things like pilots, or what about even further down the road for construction workers? You know, I'm sorry, but right now I can definitely understand someone saying, they're never going to replace my job if you're an electrician or something like that. But you know, when you look at some of the applications of nanotech and 3D printing and how, you know, even the things that we don't even know about yet or things that haven't been invented yet, in the next 20 years, I wouldn't be surprised to see even huge portions of the construction industry going belly up because of these technologies that are rolling out. So it's only going to continue to get worse, you know, unless we take a vastly different approach as to how we deal with these sort of issues. But, you know, it's just one of those things where it's not going to start getting better miraculously. You know, even if you educate yourself or get better trades, when they can figure out a way to get a robot to do your job, you will be replaced. And you know, it really makes you stop and think. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with the Iron Republic's story, which was from the early 1900s, where this guy who was a political candidate basically took his fortune and sailed to the south, the very far south of the world, and found basically a pass, a bridge through Antarctica to an entirely different land, much like Admiral Richard Byrd spoke about and during, you know, Operation High Jump, that was inhabited by basically an offshoot civilization of people who were migrating from Europe to America during that, you know, during the colonization period. And one of the conversations that they had was a really, really interesting conversation about, you know, how technologies, while they're a good thing in many ways, you know, you can build more things quicker with if you've got a machine or a robot doing it. But does that really benefit the society at all? If you're building cheaper things, like, okay, so let's say it takes 50 people to make 50 pairs of shoes in a day, and you got to pay them all individually for their time. But you've got a robot that can make 100 shoes in a day, and you only have to pay one guy to service the robot. And of course, the initial, you know, cost of purchasing that very expensive, you know, industrial robot. So there's a question that is, you know, is it really better for our society to make one man rich off of the job of 50 men? Or is it better to have those 50 men doing jobs? And, you know, I think the capitalist psychopathic answer to that is clearly it's better to have the one robot, you know, unless you're the guy that's getting the crap end of that stick, then maybe not necessarily so. And, you know, I can see the validity of both sides of the argument, but at least in that exchange in the Iron Republic story, you know, clearly the one who was for the men keeping their jobs, you know, won the argument by logic. And I think that there's definitely something to that. But, you know, outsourcing to third world countries and outsourcing to robots is only going to make things worse. And we're seeing, I know on Friday of last week, the Dow was down like 1,000 points. They were calling over the weekend. I know a lot of the financial channels were calling for an imminent collapse of the dollar by this past Monday. And of course, it's not, you know, none of this stuff appears to have bounced back, but it also doesn't appear as if the world has ended or the dollar has absolutely collapsed. But, you know, it's coming, man. These fiat currencies like the dollar that have basically nothing backing them except for the deceived faith of the public who uses it, they always end up going the way of the dodo bird because I would say mismanagement. You know, of course, it is very much because of the Federal Reserve and their vicious attack on our sovereignty and our wealth, siphoning away our wealth to foreign interests and using that money to basically enslave us further, get us into wars that we have no business in, taking away our rights to protect us from these hypothetical terrorists and that sort of thing. And at the end of the day, you know, the jobs are getting less, the dollar's getting less valuable. And so, you know, you see things like Bitcoin and Litecoin, and I know a few months ago Bitcoin was up to like 20,000 bucks per, and man, I felt really stupid because I had a Bitcoin and a half earlier, I guess, was it this year or maybe last year, but within 6 months of this $20,000 Bitcoin. I had 1.5 of them, and at the time I had them, I think it was all in all worth about $2,000. I had sort of a family emergency. I had to spend it. Although if I had been able to hang on to that damn Bitcoin and a half until a couple months ago, I could have cashed out with about $30,000, I think. So boy, boy, did I feel stupid. And I've still got a little bit of Litecoin, but that's not doing very well right now. Although it really does appear that these cryptocurrencies are going to be the sort of the de facto replacement for the dollar. And I'm not speaking on this because of my financial prowess. I'm kind of repeating what others are saying. So take me with a grain of salt on that. But I'll definitely hang on to this Litecoin, even though it's been going down. It had a sharp decline in this month. It's just a matter of time to where you see these really big investors, super wealthy whales investing in blockchain technologies, investing in cryptocurrencies. And so, you don't want to be the last one to the party. And, I've got a lot of friends and family that have their retirement and life savings tied up into mutual funds and 401ks, and they feel that it's very safe that way. But I'm sorry, if the dollar shoots up or hyperinflates 1,000% in the next year, let's just say, and I'm not saying it's going to do that, but if it did, then it doesn't really matter how many dollars you have in these 401ks and mutual funds. You're basically going to lose your ass. And it's just a matter of time before we see another Great Depression all over again. And this is clearly engineered. It is programmed that way. It always ever has been, at least ever since the Federal Reserve, or the non-federal, non-reserve, non-bank, has been in place since the early 1900s. But that's exactly what they were chartered to do, is to siphon away our wealth, fat in their pockets, and essentially control everyone. And so thank God we at least know about this stuff, and perhaps in the next generation we can see a grassroots upsurge against this menace that is the Federal Reserve. But when you start talking about these cryptocurrencies, I still don't fully understand exactly what it is and how it is different from any other, from any fiat currency. And I've heard the arguments, that there's only ever X amount of these Bitcoins or whatever, and that never changes, and so the value is fixed. Although I just find it a little bit confusing that the Bitcoins are always valued in dollars, and you have to, for the most part, you have to convert your Bitcoin to dollars in order to spend it. Although it's becoming more easy to spend your cryptocurrency. I just don't see how anything other than a physically backed commodity can behave as a currency, because cryptocurrencies are basically backed by nothing other than these hypothetical bits of code in cyberspace, encrypted bits of code in cyberspace. And I've heard the pro arguments and the con arguments, and I'm not going to sit here and preach to you to go out and swap out your savings into Bitcoin. Although, if you've got a ton of money sitting in savings or sitting in mutual funds and this kind of thing, it might not be a bad idea to diversify just a little bit of that into cryptocurrency, because it does appear that the cryptocurrencies may be at least somewhat sheltered from the collapse of the dollar. So another big, huge thing that happened this week on Monday was apparently China and India and maybe a few other countries. I don't know the whole story, but apparently they have, or they're threatening to go off of the dollar for the world reserve on petroleum. And of course, if you guys have been following this sort of thing long enough, you know that really the only physical commodity backing the dollar is petroleum. And so this is the entire reason that the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers got together and made sure that America is addicted to petroleum, and the world really is addicted to petroleum, when in fact the diesel engine was built long before Ford was ever even around. The diesel engine was built by a German guy named Diesel. What are the odds of that? In the 1800s to run, you could gas it up with modified peanut oil. And so this whole idea that we've got to have petroleum is a psychological operation foisted upon us by these very same ruling elites that are responsible for the Federal Reserve. These guys are buddies, right? And so, it just goes to show you that we're not as deep into the crap as we think we are. Much of the crap that we are deep into is fictional. It's perceived. It's an idea that has been fictionally foisted upon us since we were born, really. But it makes a lot of sense why they would preach the scarcity of oil, and you could even extend that out to flat Earth, because if the Earth is a finite spinning ball, then naturally there's only so much stuff that can be inside of the Earth, right? It is a ball. It is a fixed size. It's not expanding, as far as I know. And yet the oil wells that were reported to have run dry in the 1980s are magically replenishing themselves. So what does this mean? That someone Mandela effect more dinosaurs into the millions of years ago? Or does it mean that this is not actually fossil fuels? And it means that it's actually a natural process of the Earth, the lifeblood of the Earth, if you will. And, I think it kind of proves that the Earth isn't a finite ball or a finite disk even, because how could the oil wells be replenishing themselves? Like, it doesn't make any sense on a finite, fixed, closed system. So I would say that is circumstantial evidence that there's more to this plane than just where the sun necessarily shines. And you've got circumstantial evidence in the form of these accounts of the Iron Republic, and in the form of Admiral Byrd's. Basically, what he said was, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said that beyond the South Pole, south from Little America, which is like a pie wedge of this hypothetical continent of Antarctica, south from Little America, on the other side of the pole, there's a continental landmass larger than the American continent. Completely unknown, unexplored, untapped. And, so there is evidence to suggest that, the flat Earth isn't just limited to Antarctica with, holding the waters in, as so many people say. And I think that the other bit of circumstantial evidence as well is the fact that these oil wells are replenishing themselves. Where's that extra liquid coming from if we are on a fixed enclosed system? So, again, I think that's sort of the silver lining to this whole thing, is that a lot of the problems that we have are self-inflicted. You don't have to keep stabbing yourself in the face, world. You don't. Like, oh my God, why do I keep stabbing myself in the face? This is awful. Well, stop stabbing yourself in the face. Problem solved. We don't have to be addicted to petroleum. You don't. That technology was around before the conventional internal combustion engine was invented. And there are very good evidence there is very good evidence to support the idea that you can run even a conventional internal combustion engine on something as mundane as water vapor. But even barring that, even that aside, you damn sure can run a diesel engine on modified peanut oil or modified fryer grease. Yeah, there's entire businesses now that are dedicated to taking away fryer grease from restaurants, and they actually pay the restaurants for the fryer grease. See, it used to be the restaurants had to pay people to come and haul off that nasty fryer grease, and you can't just dump it in the yard. It has to be disposed of properly. And so that was a big expense for restaurants, and now there's an entire sector of businesses where they'll pay restaurants to come and get their fryer grease because you can turn it into fuel for these types of diesel engines. It makes perfect sense. And so the only reason that we have this addiction to oil is because these frickin', excuse the language, but these asshats responsible for the Federal Reserve and all this crony crap that started happening in the early 1900s, because of these guys. And I got to tell you, I really do believe that a lot of the NASA deception and just this massive amount of deception that we see all over the world was a stunt to keep people occupied and not looking into the fact that our economy and our manufacturing sectors were being plummeted, taken apart, sold piecemeal, and basically we were all sold down this river by these very same people. And so, you know, it can be a little bit overwhelming, but we just have to realize that, you know, they are 1% and we are 99%. Hang on, y'all. Sorry, I'm not taking calls. It's probably just a telemarketer anyway. So what was I saying? Of course I get a phone call, ruin my train of thought, but I guess you get what I was saying. Now here's the other thing. Everybody's not going to be able to get rich trading in Bitcoin or Litecoin or any of these cryptocurrencies. That's not how it works. You can't have everybody be a winner. So that means you are going to have lots and lots of losers, right? And everybody can't you can't have a society or an economy that is mostly built on like trading currencies or luxury services for the rich who did well and won those trades, right? So, and luxury services would be everything from like, I don't know, people washing your car to people restaurants is a good thing, hotels, that not necessarily creating anything of value, but making money off of people who need those services. So, you know, we're not talking about bare necessities, we're talking about services. Bare necessities would be food, housing, clothing, water. Um, you know, if you're not producing any of those things, then it's not going into the economy. You're just trading around the wealth that exists when you're talking about services. And we do by and large have a service economy. And that can go on for a while, but I just don't think that it can go on perpetually. The entity starts to feed on its own self at some point when when you don't have real things being produced. And you know, America was an isolationist country, an isolationist economy when it you know, for many years, for a long time. And that sounds like a bad word, isolationist, doesn't it? But what it means is that everything that was bought and sold in America was manufactured in America. We had very little imports, very little exports. And it is these banking cartels that have basically globalized, if you know, I hate that phrase, but globalized the economy. And so that's why we have things like NAFTA, and that's why we have things like outsourcing professional services for graphic design and sales and customer service. And that's why we have things like buying our oil from our quote unquote enemies in the Middle East, you know, for all of my life. You know, it's just the whole thing seems to not make sense rationally, logically. It really doesn't seem to make sense until you think about it under the lens of, or look at it under the lens of, it makes sense because they are evil psychopaths in the reins. I mean, that's the only way that it really makes sense, because normal people just don't behave like that, right? Excuse me one second. Yeah, I guess it was Saturday night. I bruised my rib, and it's feeling a little better now, but I can't like hiccup, sneeze, cough, laugh. If I start laughing too hard, it gives me a shooting pain in my back, my rib. Yeah. So anyway, okay, what was I going to talk about next? But yeah, but I guess the point was everyone can't make a living on trades or luxury services. You have to be producing real things. And I mean, look at the farming industry. Look at how much of that has been completely automated. Very few jobs in the farming industry, and the jobs that they do give you, well, at least in America, the parts of America I've been, most of those are done by illegal immigrants. And you know, I definitely see the argument by the illegal immigrants that America needs them, because Americans are not going to work all day busting their ass for a few dollars, whereas illegal immigrants will. Now, does that make it right? Does that mean that we need them? Or does it mean that the people, these mega corporations that own most of the farmland and create most of the crops and the GMOs, you know, they should have to, pay people a fair wage to do those sorts of jobs, but they can get away with it, and so they do. It's all about that profit margin for them. And so I definitely get the argument that, Americans are not going to go bust their butt for, say, $4 an hour or something, or whatever you can pack in a bucket for $1, do that all day long for 12 hours, 7 days a week. Hell no, Americans aren't going to do that unless they're extremely desperate and very hardworking and able to withstand this damn heat. Oh my God, you know, but they're not going to do it for chump change. And so maybe that makes us arrogant, but maybe we're used to a standard of living that the ruling elite don't want us to have. And maybe that is in the plan, and that's exactly the way it was meant to go. So it's not that it doesn't make sense, like why is our quality of living declining? This doesn't make sense. We're the biggest economy in the world. Well, it makes sense because that's how the planners want it to go. And it's the writing's all over the place. It's on the wall, right? But so, okay, next line item I had was Mad Mike Hughes. He's in the news again. He's running for governor of California. I thought this was kind of funny. So basically, his campaign is waste your vote, and this actually draws a parallel to the Iron Republic story, which I did. I put that in audiobook format on my channel. You can find it. Just search for it if you want to hear it. It's kind of long. But in the beginning of that, the main character of the story was in a political campaign, allegedly, where he was approached by certain moneyed interests that they wanted him to run in order to basically siphon enough votes away from the opposition candidate so that their party would win the election, basically. And this has happened a lot of times throughout American political campaigns, where you'll have sort of a third party candidate who takes just enough of the moderate votes away from one person to ensure that another side wins. So if it's going to be close, if they can take enough of the moderate votes away from both sides, then I guess they figure out it. Math magic. They figure out that the side that they want to win will win if they do this. And so that's what Mad Mike Hughes is up to. Of course, I think he's coming due for his second rocket launch, right? Where he's gonna take a balloon up 20 miles and then launch a steam rocket from the 20-mile mark and go up to 62 miles. Although my prediction is that since you don't have any barometric pressure at those elevations, he's going to drop like a rock. But maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. That remains to be seen. Right. So, okay, here's one thing I wanted to share my screen for this, because I don't know if you guys follow My Perspective on YouTube. Rory, I think he's South African. He's man, I really, really love his videos. I've been subscribed to him for years, and his channel was actually taken down maybe a year or two ago, and he did put it back up. So anybody that used to follow him and realized that his channel was taken down, he is back up. He's been making videos for a while now, but one of his most recent videos, he does a response to that Hith guy, that very, very pretty globe head guy who makes absolutely no sense. But he did a response to the Soundly video, the Lake Pontchartrain, curvature video. And he made some really good points. And, the guy from My Perspective, Rory, he does a lot of 3D animation stuff. And so he's got a very good eye for it. But let me share this with you, and then I'll talk about it. So just give me 1 second and I'll pull this up. Come on, share my screen. Wow, I hope I'm not totally giving away my link here. Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry y'all, I suck at this. Mother. Okay, share my screen. All right, so I'll wait. Well, no, actually, I won't wait. I will just show you guys. There we go. Okay, so it did pop up, so it is sharing. Great. Here we go. So it's this video. This is the one. My Perspective did a response to this video by that guy Hith. I think that's how you say it, Hiith, where his claim is that this is actually CGI. Oh, and that probably wasn't the best shot of it, so let me find another one. And I will, I guess I could drop a link into the chat. Here we go. So basically what he's saying is the water is a dead giveaway. Also, you know, when I first started seeing this, I was thinking, man, that just looks fake as hell, but I kind of thought that it was all of the, you know, all of the very fine lines tricking my eye. But indeed, now that he's mentioned this and I've looked at it again more closely, I totally agree, man. This looks fake as crap to me. It really does. Like, that doesn't look real at all. Now I'm gonna play it and just watch how, as the camera's panning, the water's moving, but it just doesn't seem to match up with what's going on in the stationary bits of these pylons or whatever. So let's play it and see if you can tell what he was mentioning, and I totally see it, especially down towards these pylons. The motion of the water just really doesn't appear to match what's going on with those pylons. I'll play it again. And I wish I could hide that stupid thing there, but whatever. Now, in the Hith video, Hith claims that he was on a bridge and he could see the same thing, the same curvature from the bridge. And somehow Rory, from my perspective, got an image from that bridge. And that ain't it. I marked the time somewhere. Let's see. What was the time? 1340. So right. So according to Rory, from my perspective, this is what you would see from that perspective. So, you know, the guy he's the same one that said the curvature calculation was wrong, and basically he was taking like an arc of a circle and then a chord between the arc. Well, let me just show you what I'm talking about. Finkel is Einhorn. Yes, yes. Oh my goodness. All right. So basically, what Hith was talking about was like, come on, you thing. He was taking a chord and measuring the height of this arc between these 2 points and saying this is what the curvature calculation should be. It should be measuring the height of this arc between these 2 points. But of course, that's absolutely not what the curvature calculation is even intended to represent. What it's intended to represent is this tangent right here. How far above the curve is it becoming per mile? And even according to AutoCAD and other sorts of mathematical derivations that Robotham didn't use, but further confirmation, different approaches of confirming this mathematics indeed confirm that it is very, very accurate. And I think that 7.99 inches per mile squared is probably closer than 8, but the amount is so minuscule, it doesn't affect it, especially not for anything, even up to 273 miles, which is the world record for the long distance landscape photography. So this guy Hith is going around saying that the curvature formula is wrong because he's wanting to measure the height of this arc according to this chord, when in fact the curvature calculation is clearly talking about the rate at which this tangent line gets higher than this curve. So two completely different things, and it just goes to show the ignorance of these globe heads and how they will just use complete falsities to make them appear that they have a valid position when they in fact do not. And so back to this Soundly thing. This was another video that Hith was going on and on about. Yeah, here he is, this guy here. I agree with Rory from my perspective. And, you know, maybe Rory could have gone into a little bit better explanation as to why he arrived at the conclusion that this was CGI, because he did explain it a bit, but he didn't go into very explicit detail, although You know, maybe that's enough. Maybe it's enough to say that, look, man, you can tell this is CGI. The water isn't moving. Oh, yeah, he's funny. The water isn't moving at the right speed. There's something wrong with this picture. And he also does mention about how the angle of this camera is changing vertically. So he asked the question, like, what, were they in a helicopter when they shot this? How did they get this video? I mean, maybe Soundly makes that claim, but you know, it just goes to show you that I believe this is a deceptive video. It's just copy and pasted CGI of all these different things, and maybe I'm wrong, but even if this is a real video, it is merely perspective and refraction that could cause this degree of curvature, apparent curvature. But if you're using CGI, then how does that prove anything if that is in fact what he's doing? And now I'm not saying that my perspective necessarily proved the claim that this is CGI, but I mean, look at that. I'm sorry, but that doesn't look realistic at all to me. Now that I've watched it 20 times, hopefully you can see it too. But yeah, so that's what I wanted to share on my screen. So hopefully you can see that good. But go watch My Perspectives video, subscribe to his channel. He does really good work. I think he's got a very, very logical approach to things, and he and I agree on several points that are not necessarily popular opinion in flat Earth. And so in that respect, you know, I do. I've got a lot of respect for My Perspective, and I like his channel. He does good vids. So anyway, let me bounce back over to my notes so I can go over a couple of other things. Did I stop sharing or no? No, I didn't. Okay, so let me try to stop sharing without giving away my stream key or whatever. Mother. See, I don't know how to. Okay, stop sharing. There we go. All right. Oh, wow. Thanks for the super chat. Flat Earth Fisherman. Appreciate that, brother. Awesome. Who do we got in the chat? Let's see. Let me scroll up. Wow, it's a very active chat. 256 people watching. Wow, what up, everybody? How are you? Okay, so very active chat. What up? Yeah, I know. What up, Karen B? GMCDXX, Libra 61 star. Wow, just way too many people to name, so I'm not going to try to name you all. But thanks so much, everybody, for joining the stream. Okay, so one of the other things that I was going to go over, and maybe I should have kept the screen share going, but you know, the whole Finkel and Einhorn thing. I did that follow-up video the other day for the Brett Kavanaugh, Christine Blasey Ford fiasco, and man, you know, I got to tell you, that's probably like one of the craziest things I've ever seen. You know, either those two are identical twins, or it's the same person. You know, and whether I'm crazy, even if I'm a complete lunatic, it doesn't mean their faces are not identical. You know, so that's the thing. I mean, there are certain things like objective truth, self-evident truth. You really can't debate that. Like you can't debate that the Earth is flat and stationary, because it truthfully and demonstrably and self-evidently is flat and stationary. So anybody that wants to debate you against that is just debating you from a position of complete deception and ignorance. And so, you know, like I mentioned last time I streamed, that the best you can achieve in that sort of a debate is to convince your opponent to look into the truth as a hypothesis, right? But if you refuse to consider a hypothesis, if it happens to be the truth, you will never come to terms with the truth. And a very similar thing, I think, can be said about the Kavanaugh and Ford thing. You know, I'm not going to debate you that their faces aren't identical, because anyone can clearly see. Hell with it. Let me share my screen again, because this is just so freaking weird, yo. Oh my God. Oh my God. All right, hold on. Oh, I almost just stopped the broadcast instead of shared my screen. Wouldn't that have been freaking silly? All right, hold on. I'm trying to do this, you stupid thing, without showing everyone my my stream URL. All right, screen share. Yes, I want to share my screen. It's almost like it wants you to give out your stream key when you hit that button. It's like, okay, sharing the screen, sharing my screen. Okay, so but okay, so like this one here, I literally sat through and watched that entire 9-hour video of the Senate hearing with Blasey Ford and Kavanaugh, and you know, you can't. There is not any sort of a debate that these two people's faces are not identical. Like if you go. Okay, so he's making a face. He's got his eyes squinted and his eyebrow clenched together and his lips puckered and his nose is angled down because he does this throughout the whole thing. But if you animate their two faces, like his face over her face and back and forth, the only thing that you can see changing is the eyes blinking, and his nose is indeed, you know, he's going meh, meh. He didn't make that noise, but that's what he's doing. The only thing that changes is their eyes are blinking. Every single line of these people's face is a perfect match. And so if you want to debate me um, about this and tell me that I'm crazy and it couldn't be true, you know, that's fine. But I would just argue that you're debating me from a position of ignorance. You know, the odds that these two people would have an identical face and hands and ears is, that, you know, I wouldn't bet on it in a random scenario. That's a silly bet. You know, it's just not a coincidence that these people have identical everything. Whoops. So yeah, this is probably one of the craziest things I've ever seen, and it brings me to, I think, the final thing that I wanted to talk about is this whole agenda, this agenda of LGBTQ and all the other letters of the alphabet, and how we've got to start using pronouns. You know, if you follow the stuff with Jordan Peterson, we've got to start using pronouns that conform to their you know, sexual orientation or whatever. Um, I think I see where it's going. I think I see where it's going. So let me stop sharing. I just wanted to share that with you guys. But so let me stop sharing. I think that where this is going is that, you know how within, and maybe I should look it up. Oh, am I still streaming really, or am I still sharing? No, okay. Maybe I'll look it up. But what year did corporations become people? Year did Wow, 1886, really? Well, that's news to me. I thought it was much more recent than that, but okay. 1886, Chief Justice Waite of the Supreme Court orally directed the lawyers that the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause guarantees constitutional protections to corporations in addition to natural persons, and, well, that goes on. But so, wow, that's a lot longer ago than I thought. So, okay, so basically a corporation, a legal fiction, an idea, something that does not have a body, a mind, or a soul, can have equal rights to people. Okay, and that's the law of the land. That's what these freaking crazy asshats are saying. That's their position, is that corporations are people. And maybe it was, maybe this was defined more specifically more recently. I seem to remember. Excuse me, man. I'm starting to get pneumonia because I can't cough good. Ah. Anyway, what the hell was I saying? Um, I seem to remember it being more recently that corporations were defined as people under the Constitution, and money as being defined as free speech under the Constitution. So the more money you got, the more free speech you got, let me tell you. But so what is the end game to this? You know, what is the end game for the city of New York having on their birth certificates now male, female, and X? Where is this going? You know, and what I think is that this is what I think, and this should dovetail everything that I've talked about today very nicely. When they start rolling out AI and synthetic beings, I believe they're going to want to give them human rights, just like we enjoy. Because then these artificial intelligences, these synthetics, if you will, can be programmed by these crazy bureaucrats to behave in certain ways, but they will be protected by the Constitution and given human rights. And I just see that all of this transgender agenda, I mean, really, do you really think that the powers that be care about you trannies out there? Like, that you really think that this government that loves nothing but itself gives a flying fuckaroony about the trannies? No, they don't. They want they want to implement laws so that when they roll out their synthetic AI, it will be people too, just like corporations and just like me and you. And you can call me crazy. I'm not even looking in the chat, but I can feel my nose itching. You can call me crazy, but wait another 20 years and tell me that the AI that's flipping your burgers and the AI that's driving your trucks doesn't get equal protections under the Constitution and under the laws of the land. And, you know, maybe this is the type of thing that Elon Musk was all on about as he smoked his blunts made of marijuana and tobacco and didn't inhale on Joe Rogan. Um, maybe this was the whole thing that he's on about. Maybe he's just completely full of it. But, this is the direction that I see it going. I see the transgender agenda as utilizing this very fringe, very low percentage portion of our population. That's the transgenders, and giving them all of these equal rights, or not equal rights, but really special rights. Like, if I said to you that I want you to call me a 9-foot tall Chinese man from the planet Mars, and if you don't call me a 9-foot tall Chinese man from the planet Mars, then you're offending me, and you are oppressing my ability to be myself, because I feel like a 9-foot tall Chinese man from the planet Mars on the inside, right? And so now all these other people, because if there's one of me, then trust me, there's lots of people on the inside who are 9-foot tall Chinese men from Mars. And so if we can all get together and really get our voices heard, then we can force all y'all other people to make sure that you call us what we are. And, don't get it wrong, because it's a hate crime, right? Now, if the government starts bending over backwards and writing legislation to ensure that me and all the other 9-foot tall Chinese men from Mars have equal rights to everybody else, something's fishy, because when has the damn government ever given a crap about, people, or especially minority fringe groups of people? No, this is an agenda. This is an agenda, and by the time that they roll out that gender doesn't exist, and there's no such thing as men and women, there's no difference between men and women. We are all unisexual androgynes. That's when they're going to roll out the synthetic AI beings that are going to demand equal rights for us. And by the time they roll that out, they'll have the SJWs demanding equal rights, not only for 9-foot tall Chinese men from Mars, but also demanding rights for the synthetic AI beings. And crazy as this sounds, man, I've seen some pretty recent videos of these synthetic sort of humanoid beings that they're creating that could very quickly become very convincing if they don't already have them. If they don't already have them. And mark my words, if they roll out synthetic butlers for the super rich in the next 20 years, they've had the same sort of thing since now or before. So, call me crazy. Just wait and see what happens in the next 20 years if God allows this freaking fiasco to continue on the way that it is, right? So, yeah, I think that was the point I was trying to make. Hopefully that made sense to you guys, but yeah. I'm just looking to see if I covered everything that I wanted to. Let me pop back over into the chat and say what up to everybody. See if y'all have any questions, comments. I can hang out for a couple more minutes and read into that. But not everybody at once. Now that it's legal, Mr. Grand Wazo 45. Now that it's legal, I'm going to smoke a fatty and drink a beer, buy Bitcoin. It's anti-money. Yeah, I mean, I hear the sentiment, and I agree. I think that the U.S. dollar needs to fail. I think the Federal Reserve needs to go, and if blockchain is the way that goes, great. If it goes back to a state-issued currency where each state has the right to issue its own currency, great. So long as we don't centralize and federalize that right over to some third-party banks who don't give a crap about the United States or you or me or any of the 9-foot-tall Chinese men from Mars. I mean, they really don't give a damn about us. I'll tell you that. So Gambit XM says they have an AI toaster. Well, what does it do? Like, excuse me. Oh man, that hurts. Man, I'll be so glad when this pain goes away. So you have an AI toaster. What does that do? I'd love to see what that does. Does it like read you your horoscope and give you I don't know. Does it actually put the butter on? That'd be great. You know, if a toaster could put butter and jelly on the toast for you, I would buy an AI toaster. But if it had to be online and sending home all sorts of information about my my body temperature and my urine color and or whatever, maybe not. But if it's convenient, and it's affordable, what the hell? I mean, they've already got all my information anyway, right? That's what I'm assuming. Okay, Karen B. Pew, pew. Let's see here. I just skipped down like a bunch, so. All right. Ben taking pics says, I moved to Tennessee, living with family, focusing on my health. Okay. Born for redemption bins. It's over except for the testing. I guess, what is that in response to the AI thing, synthetic thing? Maybe not. 20 years back, Spherical Cow, 20 years, heck, they have robots now that can install drywall. Really? I did not know that. So I've been on job sites very recently, and at least where I live, they have Mexicans installing drywall. Nothing against Mexicans. I get along with them great. I've had them as neighbors, love them. But to be very honest with you, one of the last job sites I was working at, we were building a hospital for, it's like inpatient therapy for long-term recovery, a big old 2-story hospital building. And one morning I came in there and there was 150 people from the drywallers team, and every one of them was Mexican. Okay, and so nothing against that, but they weren't using robots. So if they've got robots that can hang drywall, then all those people are going to be out of jobs. And I'm not saying they were illegal either. Some of them probably were. Some of them definitely were. Many of them definitely were, but not all of them. But think about what's going to happen when even that simple of a technology gets rolled out. You've got a huge amount of people that are going to have to find another job. Large multi-million-dollar companies that are going to be out of business when they roll out that technology. And of course, it will be much more profitable for the very few people that that invest in those sorts of machines and price their jobs accordingly and schedule their jobs accordingly. Because if a machine can do the work of 10 people, then you can get more jobs done. You don't have to pay all those people. You don't have to pay for their insurance or their any of that. It's a very huge loss of all that liability and cost. And yeah, that they will be replaced by machines, just like the truck drivers and pilots and all the other things. So that is definitely coming. But yeah, I didn't know that. If that's true, if they can install drywall with robots, that's news to me. I haven't seen it on job sites as recently as this year, right? So toaster AI, yeah, no, I've never heard that. Um, Nathan Yamaha 464. I think AI will come more through cell phones and monitoring us. Also, geospatial technologies. Well, we'll see. Maybe this is the part that I failed to mention though. So okay, so what if AI has plans to build synthetic AI beings, and AI is the one that's behind this whole transgender agenda to make sure that there is no such thing as gender by the time it rolls out its synthetics? It'll fit like a damn glove in there, and they'll have programming through the media to have SJWs rooting for and blowing up. I don't know, abortion clinics or something. Well, maybe that's the wrong group, right? But yeah, they're gonna have the SJWs rooting for the AI synthetics because of this programming. Like, well, AI synthetics are people too. They have rights too. Yeah, right. I just see it. I mean, that's the only reason I can see the government getting behind this agenda and pushing this sort of agenda is to this sort of end game where AI is going to manifest itself in our reality as a synthetic artificial intelligence that will present itself as human, will not actually be human, and yet it will be able to get things like a birth certificate and a bank account because, because of this legislation that was put in place, that there is no such thing as gender, there is no such thing even as being human anymore. And anybody that wants to be a 9-foot tall Chinese man from the planet Mars can do so, just like a synthetic artificial intelligence can be a person, just as a corporation can be a person. So Nitpoon says God not only allowed a lot of crazy fiascos, he created several on his own. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it just makes you wonder, you know, how is God allowing these frickin' crazy people to poison our water with fluoride? As long as I've been alive, the fluoridation of municipal water supplies has increased in spite of probably many prayers to the contrary. So, what up, God? What's going on, man? You know, what is up with that crap? So, yeah, we've been going on just over an hour. I think I'm going to wrap this one up now. But thank you guys all so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Um, I also want to give a big shout out and thanks to my Patreon supporters. You guys are the best. Love you guys. And my PayPal supporters, I really could not survive without you. It's a very difficult time. I've been laid out of work all week long because, like I said, I bruised my rib on Saturday, and I'm surprised that I'm talking so well, but it is feeling a little better. It's just if I cough or inhale sharply or sneeze or hiccup or laugh or yawn. I can't yawn, man. That really sucks. Because when I'm getting tired, if I don't yawn, I cannot sleep. And every time I go to yawn, it's just it's a, it's a, it's a reaction. It just cuts it off, because you start breathing in to yawn, and your ribs feels like someone's jabbing a knife into my back right side. Kind of really freaking sucks, man. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to wrap it up. If you would like to become a channel supporter, just check out patreon.com or paypal.me. Both of the keywords on that is TheMorgile. So paypal.me/TheMorgile, patreon.com/TheMorgile. And I'll put links in the show notes. I'll put links to the other stuff that I talked about in the show notes as well. So God bless you guys. Thanks so much for coming. Keep it flat, keep it real, and see you guys in the next stream. And I am stopping broadcast.